and welcome to another ComfyUI tutorial video. In this tutorial video, we will have some crazy fun exploring how an AI can help us create a fully fledged ComfyUI node. All done from scratch without any special tools like compilers, editors, or Python knowledge. We are going to use only default tools from Windows and let the AI do the work for us. The program this AI writes will become our ComfyUI node. I'm your host, Edwin Braun, and let's get this thing going. As a short reminder, this is an unscripted live recording of a tutorial video. Everything you see here is happening live on one PC, including the recording in OBS. As always, if you like this video, please leave a like and subscribe. Hit the bell icon. This will ensure I'll do more videos like this. Let's dive right in. Let me switch now my monitor and let's go into a ComfyUI browser window. So what we are using is a Windows PC, and we are using the portable install of ComfyUI. And what I want to do as a node example is I want to load images and process a batch of images and rescale them. Let me just activate this node. I want to resize an image and then save the image out. So this is what I want to do. The only thing or the only problem I have with ComfyUI, there is no load image option that automatically loads and respects subfolder structures. So let's say I have a hierarchy of subfolders with dates and places and whatever. However I sorted my images, I need to load them into ComfyUI to get them processed and saved as a different reduced file. So if we wanted to do that, we are pretty lost because to my knowledge, there is no automatic load image node that loads the stuff with respect of subfolder hierarchies. So we would need to write this on our own. And now you might say, I'm not a program. Let's see if we can do this without any knowledge of programming or what we are doing at all. The node we want, what does it need to do? First, it needs to load images in a subfolder structure. So we want to grab all images starting with the root folder and everything underneath. We need to go unlimited and get these images. Then we need to put in a counter of some sort. So we need to count how many images or next image. Then we need to output the image name for further processing so that we can save it. And we need to know how many images are found so that we can have in ComfyUI our automatic queuing. So that's about it, what we need. And maybe we need some other outputs like, as I mentioned, the total images found or the image name needs also to be output. Let's see how we can do that. So the first thing, if we wanted to create a node, is we need to go into, let me switch my screen here as well. We need to go into the folder where we have our custom nodes. And then we can see what we are going to do here. And then there is the subfolder custom nodes. So if we want to create our own node, we need to create a custom node. And we start that by just creating our own folder. So I'm just creating a new folder. Just created this new folder. And let's just name them Ultra Image Loader. Keep in mind, the name of this folder is important. The name of our node is important, or the name we want to give our node. Just make sure it's all consistently written. We have here now our folder Ultra Image Loader. That doesn't give us a node, but it is the first important step. And then there's only one thing we really need to know about nodes and how ComfyUI loads them is, let me just go into this node. There is this weirdly spelled file _init_.py. So this file is necessary. If we don't have this file, our node will not be loaded. So let's go back in our newly created Ultra Image Loader and we put it in here. So now I just copied the file over. Well, you can grab that from any node. So this init underscore, let's probably open this and adjust it already so that we can have our node working. So what we need to do now is we need to load this into a text editor. So let me just bring in our text editor. And in our text editor, we are going to bring in this file. So I'll just drag and drop the file in here. You can see that's the content of the file. And the only thing we need to change is Ultra Image Loader. That is the name of our node we want to create. So that's all we need to do. .ultra image loader. The rest we can keep as is. We don't have to worry at all. So however you want to name your node, you can name it whatever you want. Ultra image loader. So that's our node, and we just keep that. Just save and done. So the next thing we want to do is, let me just go back to our Explorer window. The next thing we want to do is we have set this file. Let me just go one folder up. So we have the Ultra Image Loader and we have this special file in there. The next thing we want to do is just have, for short, a look at our images folder. So that's the images folder. So we have a collection of images. So just keep that in mind. We want to read them, process them, and do anything in our ComfyUI interface. Let's start what we want to do next. And the next important thing is we need to go and create a prompt for our AI system. And what I'm going to use, and I will dive into this prompt, what we are going to do here is I'm going to use Perplexity. It's free for now. You can just go to up here. Just go to labsperplexity.ai. Then you can choose multiple LLMs. Choose the first one, the online, because we need to have the latest information that the system can grab from the internet. Because ComfyUI is relatively new and it changes a lot. And if you use an older LLM, it might not understand how a node works or how these things work. We have this AI. We are going to use this AI and we need to tell the AI, hey, please write us a ComfyUI node. So let me go back to my text editor where I have the prompt. And by the way, I'll post all the prompts and the steps in the YouTube video. Just go to more and read through the video. And also please leave a comment if you like this style of videos, if you could follow, or if there's anything you would want to see next. So let's go into my prompt text. What we have here is the prompts for our LLAMA model. And we are going to have the first prompt is, I'll ask the AI, do you know ComfyUI? And you should always do that. It might not be necessary, but it's important for you if you choose to use any other LLM that tells you it can do programming or anything. I'm just copying this sentence. And now I'm going back to Perplexity and I'm pasting my sentence in here. As I mentioned, I just asked, do you know ComfyUI? So that's all. That's not programming yet, but it will hopefully spit out, yes, I know it. And you have to check and make sure it understands, yes, I'm familiar with ComfyUI. Creating a custom node for ComfyUI involves several steps. And then it tells you what it can do. So it needs to detect or understand that this is ComfyUI and not anything other Comfy or whatever an LLM or an AI can make up. So that's the first step. I like to do that to check, okay, it knows what I'm talking about. The next step we are going to do is, I just say, we need to make sure it knows and understands how a ComfyUI node works. So I'll tell it, okay, here's the example template of a ComfyUI node. Please analyze. I'll add later working examples as well. What I'm going to do is I will show the AI, hey, this is how the template looks like. And where would you get this template? For that, we are going back into our custom nodes folder. In there, there's a file called example.node.py.example. So we are going to just drag and drop this into our text editor. I just dragged and dropped this here, and that's the file we just saw, the example node.py. That's in your custom nodes as an example when you want to create your own node. We don't have to understand or do anything with it. Just what we are going to is we are going to select all, copy, and now we're going back to our Perplexity. And oh, just 1 second, we need to do our first prompt here. Copy. So I'm going back and use the first prompt to tell it I'm now showing you the example node. I'm going back to Perplexity, and we are now in here, and I'll just tell it, okay, here we go. Here is your example. So I copied the whole thing in there. I'll press enter now. It starts analyzing it, and that's also very good. If you want to understand and learn how this node system works, you can just have it run it through and just read through. It's very good, the summary. What the class definition means, what this node does, how you define stuff, and so on. So that's the second step we have here. Now I'm going back to my text editor. We had the example nodes. And now in my next prompt, I'll say, here's a working example of a load image code snippet. So what I want to do is I'll use an existing node that already works. And that's the load image example from ComfyUI, a standard or default node. So I'm just copying this over to my Perplexity. Paste it here. Here's a working example of a load image. So now we need to get this working example to show him that's how it looks like when it's working. Where would we find this working example? The working example we can find, let me just go back to our window, our structure here, and I'm going back to our folder. Now we have to go one directory up. In the main ComfyUI directory, we have the nodes py. That's where Comfy has its own nodes defined. Keep in mind, that's not one single node. So we are just telling, or now grab one example, and I'll show you what we need to grab. I'll just drag and drop into the text editor as well. So I just dragged and dropped the nodes example, and it's a very long program. We don't need to go through it and do anything. What we are going to do is Control find, Control F, load image. Because what we wanted to do, remember, we want to create our own node that can load images, but with substructure and a path we can supply. So I'll just search for load image. And here we see it starts with class load image. And then I'll just go down until when the next class starts. So I'll just do the select all. And now we have selected all our code. And that's a working code of a load image. So now we go back to our Perplexity and add this code. So now he has seen the template, and he's now seeing the running code, an example that actually works. So it's analyzing it right now. You can read through how this works. And the next step would be we ask him now with this information to create node for us. Now that we have done our 2 prompts, very simple preparation prompts. The first one, let me just recap. The first one was just to show an example how a node works in theory. The second one is a load image, a working node from ComfyUI. And now let me just move back to our prompt list. Now we can start creating our node. And as I mentioned, we just tell the AI, hey, make sure you consider all the information I gave you. That's important for these AI things. He should use whatever he just learned and then create a node compatible with Python 3, because sometimes they make up their own stuff and use a mix of various codes. We don't want that. So Python 3 is what we use in ComfyUI. And then I tell him or describe the node. So I say, I need to create a ComfyUI node. Repeat ComfyUI so that he knows that's not just a Python code or whatever, or JavaScript. That loads images similar to the load image node. Remember, we showed him how the original node works. However, it should respect subfolders as an option where we say, okay, the default should be off. The node needs to output the total images. We want to know how many images we found as a text, so I can know how much images are found in total. So that's an important information because we want this output. It also needs an output for the image name, because we want to save the image later on. And I want that without file extension, because we could load a TIFF image, but I always want to save it as a JPEG image. Here I just say, okay, I want to read all image formats. Ensure the return names are properly declared. So I want that the node probably is named, that's an image, that's a text, that's a string. Also ensure return types are properly declared. That's the same declaration. And make sure that the image is converted into proper ComfyUI tensor format before returned as image. So the connections in the nodes where they say image, where you can grab the image output, that needs to be in a special format that's called tensor. So we just remind the AI, hey, you're writing a ComfyUI node. And then we are there where I just described again in detail what I want to have. So that's the inputs I want to have. I want to have an input for the image ID. So let's say we found 10,000 pictures. So I want to make sure, okay, show me picture 5,000. Show me picture 5,001, 5,003, and so on. An option for the folder path, we need to specify a folder. And an option where we say, okay, go through subfolders. And then we want the outputs, total images, image file name as a string without file extension that we will use for our save node. And then I want to have an image output that I can connect for the rescaling process. So that's the whole prompt. And now let's just copy this prompt, go over to our LLM, and we'll paste that here. And then it creates the code for us. So now what we get, if all goes right and AI isn't doing any fancy hallucinations, we should be able to just take the code and use this. So let's now go into our custom nodes. Remember, we have our folder in here. And now I'm just creating an empty text document. So I create a new text document, Ultra Image Loader. Remember, we need to make sure it's the same name. And it's not a text, it is a Python file. Okay, we say, okay, it will ask us, do you really want to rename it, and blah, 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 all this. So now we are going to load that. I'll double click it. And we go into our text editor. It's an empty file. So let me just close that. It's an empty file. What I'm doing now is from Perplexity, we are grabbing now our code. And there's this little button up here, this little button, copy. So now I copied the code and we should have now everything we want. Let's go in here, paste the code in here, and now we just have the first code and we'll save it. So if all is fine and this code is actually working as a Python code, we can just go and in Manager restart our ComfyUI server. Let me just go back here. I'll bring up the ComfyUI Manager. Let me just here press the restart button and say OK. So now we're waiting for the restart of our ComfyUI Manager. And when the server is up and running, we can start trying out our node. And we're back. Here we go. Our server restarted. And now we are going to try the following. We are going to double click here and search for an hopefully ultra image loader node. And what do we see here? Ultra image loader, our node. And as we can see, we have our image ID, so the counter I mentioned. We have our folder path. Let me just type in my folder path here. Just copy and paste. Here we go. So that's our path where we want to grab the images. Next thing is we want to automatically increase after each prompt when we queue the prompts, and let's do that by converting our image ID input. We'll just feed in the image ID. We start counting at 0. Then we have our total images output, and I'll explain why I want this output. We have an image file name output as well. This one we would connect here with the file name. If we wanted to save, let me just show you that. That is the node that saves the image, but we don't want to do that now. And this is the rescaling node. So what we need to do is we need to connect the rescale node. So now I think we have everything connected we want to connect. Now when I press Q, hopefully this node will work and we have our first ComfyUI node written by an AI. And without any knowledge, without any special tools. Now we get an error message and it tells us image OPS is missing. And that's the thing with Perplexity. So it did not import the tools for the image OPS. So what we can do now is we can go back to our text editor and we can see what is going on with our, let me just go into my text editor and we can see what's going on with our node. So we can see here's the important system tools it needs. So what we are now going to do is ask Perplexity to fix that. So what we got here in our, let me just go back to our ComfyUI. We can just go in here, ask, okay, what's happening? Name image ops is not defined. So I'll just copy this error message here. And now I'm going back to our text editor where we can see what's going on. So these are important. Something is missing here. So what we want to see is where does it use this if we want it, and we can see down here image ops is used. So we don't need to understand what's going on. We just saw the error message. We go back to Perplexity, and in Perplexity we just tell the system, hey, what did you do? Please fix this. So we just say, I get this error. And this is sometimes necessary. It should not make this error, but that's AI for you. And it says it needs to do this. Then we can say, can you please add this to our code? And then it added this hopefully to our code. And then we can just copy and paste the code. All the rest seems to be working. So we just go here, copy, paste our code over, file, save. And now all we need to do is we keep the node as is. We just restart our ComfyUI server. And now we wait again for our ComfyUI server to come up. So now ComfyUI, a new server is running. All the connections are still there, so it didn't mess up the code. With AI, we need to be a little bit careful. But now let's try if something is going on. And actually it's working. So let's say, is it really working? Let's say I want to start with my image 0. Let me just make this a little bit. And we are upscaling. Let's just say, okay, 512 by 512. So now we see that's our image 0. Next one would be image 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. And the total amount of images is down here. Let me just zoom in here. So it found 13 images in this folder. If you have a subfolder, it will find 5,000 or whatever amount of pictures. So what can we do with this system now? What we can do is, let me just reset this to 0. And in the Q prompt, you can just go here and show extra options. Now I can say, I want to process 13 images. Let's process 13 images. Now we can just have it run automatically, load all the images in here, put it in the queue, scale down, save the image. Right now I'm not saving, but just for the process, we can see it goes through the image, process all the images in one go. And you can have thousands or millions of images. So that's exactly what we wanted to achieve. You saw we had one error, so don't be scared if the AI gives you shit. You just say, okay, I get this error. I get this error. You try the new code and eventually it will run and work. But for now, what you have in YouTube, if you put that step by step in ChatGPT 4, for example, you get a perfect node code right from the start. No error messages, no errors at all. Right now, it's a little bit hard to get ChatGPT 4 working, depending on where you are, in which area. It might be slow and so on. But ChatGPT 4 right now is much, much better in writing this code because it has the latest access to the internet and knows how to write the code. That's it. We created our first node without knowledge, without Python. We don't know how coding works. Just a few things we need to know. You can analyze my prompts, as I mentioned. I'll put them in the YouTube video description. You can follow it and you have your own ComfyUI node. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Have fun reproducing it and try creating your own nodes and let me know. Please let me know if you create your own nodes. You don't have to start with complex, huge nodes. Just make some simple nodes like I did here. These nodes are very useful and I'm sure you can think of other nodes. So again, thank you so much for watching this video. Please leave a like and subscribe, press the bell button, and thank you so much. Goodbye.